Welcome YouTube, this is Asteroids Wired. So welcome to the new playthrough on the channel, which is basically going to be the wintry brush of the game Van Helsing here. So it's an excellent type game to kind of do for this particular time of year, October, November, December, pitches like that. It's definitely more for like the cooler months. I feel like this would be an excellent game to add as an addition to the channel. So I look after this in particular. This game has a lot of similarities to Devil May Cry. I realize that the Van Helsing series was kind of seen as haphazard just within the reception it got, but I still think it's a pretty excellent type fare to kind of get. This like another quality rental, just like Rise to Honor, some of those type of pitches, I would have to say. Excellent type fare. It's just like a good, affable type follow-up to something of like Devil May Cry type fare. If you do enjoy that particular game, this would be right up your alley as far as those pitches going to happen. I just look after the tone behind it. Now, I haven't played this game in like 20 years. It's been a pretty lengthy pitch as far as that particular kind of went, but I think I should be able to get towards it now. Unfortunately, just to spoil it, just because we're not quite at the difficulty setting yet, I'm not going to tackle this on normal or hard mode or anything past that. I just would look after, like, I just realized that within the tone of whether or not I'm going to be able to defeat these games, I think it's more about the commentary and just the overall, the quality that's going to be had with this. And I don't think there's really anything extra that you unlock for doing it later on further difficulties like would be with Guitar Hero. I mean, if it were, I would probably do this on at least normal, but I'm just going to try to get towards the game. So it's just the concept behind it, but just not looking to have like a year break from this game because of the game over or just a particular part of the game that just causes grief or something like that. But we look after it. So yeah, this creeping aesthetic about this game, this was, I want to say, Hugh Jackman did this particular movie. It's an excellent concept, and he's the one that plays Van Helsing, so this was in the tone behind it. He may not have the voiceovers in this game, but still an excellent pitch to kind of get that here, just to be able to say. It really works great for this time of year. So there's definitely some concepts just to be able to kick back and like when the trees are looking scraggly and pitches like that, some of those type of tones. Maybe they wouldn't be scraggly right now, but just as the leaves are orange and purple and red and some of those type tones, just to be able to appreciate the fare. Just go pick up Swishers typeness, just being able to get, just roll up a nice grape sweet, something like that, kick back with some of that gaslit type fare. There's plenty of this good concept with that. Kind of actually truthfully forgot about this game. This is one of those ones, I was talking with Jack Goldfield a bit like a few years ago, and he had mentioned this in like a comment not too long ago on this particular channel, but then also just the concept of reflecting on like some games that had like the horror aesthetic, and I would have to suppose, apart from like, classic games like Resident Evil 4 and like Devil May Cry, some of those type ones, just being able to have some extra type ones in there. Because there are some ones. I do feel like, the PlayStation 2 definitely has some gothicness about it. This is kind of like, it just has a lot of these games. It's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that. We kick things off with the boss fight. It's kind of the tone behind it. You just get right ripped into it as far as the pitch is going to happen. But I felt like showing off this intro. It's basically, it's gonna. Pretty dope the way that this movie just converts right to a game just within that appeal. I don't remember the movie either. It's probably been 20 years since I've seen the movie, so I'm not going to remember like the stuff. I remember like at least Frankenstein was in this movie. I remember having a buddy that would refer to him as Frankenstein's monster. He would just kind of say it, and that's actually the actual tone behind it. Is when you think of Frankenstein, it's actually not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster. But just the concept of this, things like that, just some of those types of tones. But I know Dracula, Frankenstein are in and I'm not going to be like technical on here. Just if I call them Frankenstein, it's just within the tone behind it. But just Frankenstein and Dracula in this really has good monster mash worth of enemies just within the tone behind it. I don't know if there's going to be werewolves or things like that, but has pretty good aesthetic behind it. This is just kind of, I think it takes place in Transylvania or Romania, some of those type places. Just real. They did their homework with making this a real gothic type game. There needs to be movies like this nowadays. I look after it. There's a lot. I've seen complaints like on YouTube feeds and just on the homepage when I am more on my Acid Roots music channel, just seeing some of those type of pitches, that the complaints about like movies today is just the concept that, they're just a lot of slapstick kind of movies right now. At least I do like the concept. I realize that Beetlejuice is kind of a more PG rated type fare, but if we could get something with like, the typical gothic aesthetic that like Tim Burton kind of has when he does movies, just with something R rated, something like that, I think we can kind of get back to that. I mean, I at least appreciate that they attempted to do that with like the new Crow movie, but apparently that didn't get that good of reception either. But they need to take more risks with doing that, because this was a good movie here, and it just, you know, they did that back in the 2000s, and they had a lot of. I mean, I feel like even if it is like a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't really care. I can defend Van Helsing just because the concept that some of these movies, and that may be what winds up happening with like the new Crow movie. I mean, a lot of people kind of gave that movie crap as far as those pitches kind of happened, but I just would look after it. I'm not really sure if some of these movies are going to become like guilty pleasures years later, if these are just going to continue to be seen as like craptacular movies. When I think of something, like when I think of a movie like Norbit, that's definitely like a movie that just has not redeemed itself. I'd say it just continues to probably be a bargain bin movie that you're going to be able to pick up for like 50 cents or $1.50, and even then it's probably not even worth that. But there are some movies, like when you think like Friday, for example, that's a classic movie, but when you think of like folks that give it like Oscar scores and pitches like that, it actually has like a 1-star rating in terms of like the 4-star standard that is like on movies. And this is kind of the concept. I mean, when you look in like Oscar territory, I mean, there's just movies, it's always going to be that way. The Oscars are never going to pick movies that are kind of more just kind of campy and not emphatic, or just, you know, have like debilitating kind of research kind of behind them. And this is definitely a good movie, but I just think the overallness behind it is just more vanilla and just kind of, and it's not, and this is obviously a gothic movie, but you know, I probably would think that there's probably ones like Les Miserables or whatever that movie's called, something with a little bit more like European type tone that just would have something more like that. It's probably what you would get, one of those type of ones, you know. But it works for what it is. It's a pretty good movie. I look after just within the tone. This would basically be like a movie that you would get like if Devil May Cry were a movie, just within the tone behind it. Just, I think the Van Helsing character is about as dope as like Dante is, just with a little bit more teen-oriented type aspect towards it. But it's an overall pretty gothic pitch. So overall, like the tone behind it. There needs to be, long story short, there needs to be more movies like this in today's times. I just would have to say, this would be a dope enough concept. But yeah. No, they're trying to bring some of that back, some of that stuff back in movies. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept. I look after it. There's a lot of remakes. There's just things like, there was like a post from Vince Vaughn that he particularly said that like he said something. I might put it in like a connotation here or something, but he said you need like he said you need like an IP, which is basically like an intellectual property, which is what a lot of movies are kind of doing. They're choosing to do more of like movies, like making like a Monopoly board game movie, or like making a Jumanji movie, which not the slash Jumanji, but this is the concept. You're just getting a lot more of like franchise type things as to what intellectual properties would kind of be. But I don't know, I miss movies like this that just would take a risk, because I want to say that this is just like a spin-off franchise. This just didn't stem from anything. This is just something that kind of happened out of nowhere. Let's look after it just within that aspect. But yeah. So, yeah, it's a good haunting time. I'm probably going to forget the gameplay about this game. There's pretty much almost a certainty between me not returning to these games like electrically quickly, I'd have to say, just between I've forgotten, like I always have to reassemble how to play Rise to Honor when I get back to that game, and I kind of look after it. I don't think it's like rocket science to be able to do it, but it is kind of the concept behind saying that it might result in like some boss fights where even on easy mode I might get whooped, and that's kind of what happens here. Is just in this particular partakement, you know, the boss gives me a little bit more trouble than what probably should have been, just considering that this is the very first fight in the damn game. But I look after it. The main reason why is just because I didn't realize that Van Helsing's hat could get knocked off, and I almost question if that is something that you lose points for. I was trying to pick up his hat, and he gets some hits in, but the thing about it is he hits you once. I mean, I realize that the dude is like 8 feet or 9 feet tall or something, but this is kind of the concept that it's kind of an extra feat. I don't know what happens if you fight. I don't know if Van Helsing becomes weaker when he doesn't have his hat, but I remember in the movie, he doesn't like not having his hat, so I just kind of felt like there had to be something just within the tone. I mean, I would like to hope that not just getting hit once would knock the hat off his head, but I just was trying to get his hat back, which kind of happens to be a thing, but it's kind of the pitch behind it. So.
Not when he's dead.
I realize I've been talking throughout the cutscenes. I'll probably not do that in later episodes. I just, I get on a tangent and I just kind of get towards it, but this is kind of the tone. So I would just watch back and forth. I mean, it's not. I probably will not have the vocals as turned up as full blown to the point where you can't pay attention to some of this. I would have to say, but it's just a good Gothic kind of premiere. So I would definitely say by winter there's going to be stock full of these episodes. And really, this is not that lengthy a game. I was looking up other playthroughs of this, and really it felt like most people beat this game in about 4 hours. Depending upon the deaths and things like that kind of happen here, I'll just have to suppose, like, I just would have to kind of suppose as to how much would kind of be around. Kind of losing my train of thought here, but that's some good stuff. So, just trying to pick up the hat and pitches like that, but so yeah, it's just like Devil May Cry. You get a melee attack, and then you get like the weapon attack. You know this pitch is gonna happen, but so I question if there's like healthy extras in this particular game as far as that kind of goes along with it. Just me wondering if there's going to be things that were not in the movie, just extras type stuff. Because sometimes movies, or sometimes video game movies will do that, where they'll add like bonus kind of like stuff that's not necessarily canon, but kind of feels like it should be just within the tone I look at. I do like when that particularly kind of happens, but for the most part, it's not like it full-blown matters just because Van Helsing, this franchise, I don't know what happened to it. They might do like a remake one day. I would almost estimate that they probably will at some point, but I just would have to say that it's kind of within the tone behind it. It's kind of paying attention to like the cutscenes in this game, kind of losing my train of thought again. Yeah, there's some dope stuff in this game, just would have to say. So yeah, I would just feel like this would be like some good winter type fare. This would be a nice one just to fire up and just get torched a little bit, have some good tones behind it. Kind of after hours creepy, and I mean it's just great when like the after hours like October, when it's like dark out and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I just like the morning hours of some of that type fare, just appreciating like the night breeze and commerce as far as that particular kind of goes. Just good weather for this time of year. I like 65, 70 degree weather just within the tone. Just a cool, just the way the clouds look in that scene right there is just pretty dope just within that tone. Just real ominous days. But yeah, alright, so subscribe for more fun, folks. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night here.